terms of choosing a pit, one of the things that I think is terribly important is you've got to get a pit where you can get a position that's meaningful. I think for all intents and purposes, the bond pit during the day is an awfully hard place to go. And how many guys in here trade bonds? Pretty big percentage. I think you know if you're down in the shithole, it's hard to get trades. And it's hard for people to see you. But I think there's something even more important than that. We talk about this a lot in the office. We talk about sight angles. There was an old thing in the grain room, people used to say, you know, we used to bring those orders down in the middle of the pit, in the bean pit, and you could stand down in the middle of that bean pit and get all the people you wanted, and you could trade like crazy. Well, I tell you what, I traded in the middle of the bean pit, and I was an idiot. And any bean trader that tells you, or any grain trader that tells you, you don't need to stand on the top step to be a good trader, the answer to that is bullshit. You have to stand on the top step, or as close to the top of the pit as you can get. For one reason and one reason only, it has to do with sight angles. I guess when I've messed around with it, I think we can probably understand what goes on in an area which encompasses a field of about 90 degrees, okay? So if I'm standing near the top of a pit and I have a field of about 90 degrees, I can't see the whole pit, but if I do this, I can see the whole pit. Now as we talk about trading today, you're going to understand that one of the most important things you can do in the pit is you have to know what goes on. You can't be an idiot. You can't be there offering fives, and not seeing all the locals on the other side getting loaded up at 5, ready to go 5 bid, 6 bid, 7 bid. You have to know what's going on. One of the ways you know what's going on is we follow an open outcry system. We're supposed to know what trades. And don't ever be afraid to ask anybody, what in the world traded up there? What traded? Because they're supposed to tell you, okay? It's not a secret. And just as an aside, this is not a business for me people. You have to be able to yell and you have to be able to shout. Don't be afraid to ask what went on. Okay, so we're talking about sight angles. I'm on the top step. I can see a field of about 90 degrees. I can see most of what goes on in this pit. I basically know what's happening. I know what's happening with the spreaders. I know what's happening in the back months. I can even see a little bit into the other pits, and I can see what's going on in the other pits. Take that same guy and move him down 4 steps. Here's my field of vision, okay? Everything that transpires behind me, I can't see. So here I am trying to be a scalper, trying to follow all the rules. 6 bid at 7, which I don't believe in, and we'll talk about that, okay? 6 bid at 7, 6 bid at 7. I'll do anything you want, okay? And if I sell 7s, I'll scratch them, and I'll scratch forever. And then when I go to the jewel store, I tell them I scratched all my trades today, but I can't pay for my groceries. So. When you step down 4 steps, your sight angle is about like this. You can't see what goes on behind you. And when you look out this way, you can't see what's happening in the corners either. You've got to be able to see that pit. So you've got to be able to go into a pit where you can see. Now, along those same lines, when you walk into a pit, where's a good place to stand? A good place to stand in a pit is that area where the locals that drive the nicest cars and make the most money stand. Because one thing I think you'll find out the longer you're in this business is nobody comes up with anything new. Everything that's been done by you, everything that's been done by the guy that started 6 months before you has been done 1,000 times before. And there really aren't too many new twists to making money when you're in a pit. So what you want to do, I think, and I guess it's kind of like a cop-out for me to say this, I think the best way for anybody to become a good trader is to become a copycat, okay? You watch good traders and you copy what they do. You don't necessarily dress the way they dress or talk the way they talk, but you stand in a position as close to the position they stand in. You watch them when they sell it. Do they bid for it right away? Geez, he sold it and covered. Why? He sold it and offered more. Why? He sold it at 5 and offered 4. Why? If it was me, it's because I was the one at 7. Okay. You want to know what the big boys are doing. Okay. Big dogs have it made. Follow big dogs. When you go into a new pit, when you choose a pit, make sure you can get a position in that pit that closely approximates the position of big dogs. Now, again, the reason for that I think is fairly self-explanatory. Nobody reinvents the wheel on a regular basis. I mean, we're pit scalpers or scalp beggars. 6 forward, please. Sell it at 7, please. Okay. There's not much you can do to maximize your income other than stand in the right spot and be disciplined. We'll talk about all that other stuff. All I'm saying is, when you choose a pit, make sure you can choose a pit where you can stand where the big dogs stand. In my opinion, without giving out any secrets, because everybody knows this, you can walk around and I think there's certain pits you can see where it's easier for you to get in a position to stand where the big money makers stand. Now, I guess we trade 200,000 a day probably on average in the bond pit. I think in the note pit they're probably trading 25,000 a day. And in the 5-year, I don't know, does anybody trade the 5-year? 5 or 6,000? Okay. When I started down here in 19, let's see, Nixon was president, so it had to be 72. When I started down here in 80, we traded in a bond pit, and there were probably maybe 60 locals. And we traded 10 or 12,000 a day. And I can remember the first day we traded 25,000 in the bond pit. Everybody threw their cards in the air. That was a big deal. We traded 25,000 contracts. We had more people in the bond pit than they have in the note pit right now. And we certainly had more people in the bond pit than they had in the 5-year pit. And our open interest didn't come anywhere close to the open interest to see in those pits. So I don't think the opportunity for making money at the Board of Trade is gone. You know, a lot of people say, God, we weren't on the wagon. We didn't get to trade bonds when bonds first started. You know, can we make any money down here? I think your opportunities far exceed the opportunities we had. I know your upfront lease expenses are high. I think people are paying probably $3 grand a month to lease a seat. When I started, we paid $2,600 a month, so it isn't that much different. I think there's opportunity. Once again, just choose the right pit. Make sure when you choose that pit that you can get in a spot in the pit that gives you an opportunity to trade. There just isn't any advantage to being down in a hole when you're trading. We'll talk a little bit about getting trades and how important it is to be in the right spot and see the right things, okay? I don't think there's any advantage to going into a pit where you can't play right away, where you can't be in a position to do as much as the next guy, okay? When I look at the meal pit and the oil pit, you can go into the meal pit and the oil pit and stand right next to the most successful trader in the pit, stand this close to him, okay? Probably get hit in the ribs about 5 times when you do it, but you can stand right next to him, and theoretically that means you're starting on an even keel, with the exception of capitalization. Capitalization was the next thing I was going to talk about in terms of choosing a pit. You know, there's 2 things to think about in terms of capitalization. A scalper doesn't need very much money, okay? And I use the term scalper in kind of a loose sense, not in an Everclip kind of a way. Everclip is the guy that runs Alpha Trading and probably is the best guy at the Board of Trade, I think, in terms of teaching new traders, next to Scott, in terms of teaching new traders how to trade and trade with discipline. Everett's from the school of 6 bid at 7. If I buy 6, 6,000, 1,000, 2,003, I'm out. Okay, let's go on to the next trade. Everett has a whole bunch of alpha traders that have come down to the Board of Trade and made a lot of money. Everett doesn't have any alpha traders that have come down to the Board of Trade recently and made any money. But Everett is the guy that taught everybody, you know, what it really meant to be a scalper. And I know if any of you have ever had occasion to visit Dave Goldberg, let's say in the morning, which I have on occasion, okay? We talk a little bit about the whole concept of scalping. How every trade is a new at-bat, every day is a new inning, and God, I used to deal with, I could give you that speech from Beta, but I won't, okay? Anyways, capitalization. When you come down here, you have to worry about enough money to get into a pit, period, end of discussion if you're a scalper, okay? Capitalization counts if you're going to go into an options pit, and you got to start financing positions, okay? So just keep in mind in choosing the right pit, you know, what's your capitalization look like? And for most of us, I think that started out, you know, my capitalization was pretty clear whatever I had in my pocket, basically what I had. And I think I have to worry with those stories, but when I started there, I remember I had enough for first 3 months on my lease. And John Ruth asked me to put $3 grand in my cap